Okay. It's still waiting on YouTube to actually reflect that I'm live before I continue. I don't trust it. I don't trust it at all. Okay. I'm going to pick up where it was. I'm just going to have to trust it. Although I'm mad at Streamlabs. Something goofy is afoot here. Okay, as I was saying, I was at unintended consequences, or as I would call it, unintended consequences. Oops. It is a slippery slope to use very vague terminology like material harmful to minors when the law also does not define what that means in any specific way at all. Typically, when they're using that kind of overbroad language, it's not on accident. These laws cast such a big net that the states that have the version that uses material harmful to minors as the defining term of what they're targeting with age verification, generally speaking, that is going to include LGBTQ plus content, information about sexual health and sex education, fan fiction, even, um, even potentially like romance novels or other kinds of spicy oriented literature will get caught in that as well. And very unfortunately, also information about trans people, even like I wouldn't be surprised to see even mentions of the existence of trans people being considered harmful to minors by some of the states that have passed laws like this because trans people are already, in the locked in as like the target in so many states that have passed age verification laws, especially the more conservative states. Although, and I haven't said this yet, I should take a second just to point out that these laws are pretty overwhelmingly being passed with bipartisan support. So this is not you guys know me if you've been following me and paying attention to what I talk about for a while, then you probably know that I lean very left. I'm a leftist. Um, but these age verification laws are being, typically written and passed with very heavy bipartisan support from both Democrats and Republicans, um, which isn't really surprising. I mean, some of the most harmful laws that have, created more of a surveillance state on the internet were ones that were very heavily, like created or passed with the help of Democratic politicians. Um, the UK did try passing a similar age verification law back in 2019, and it actually ended up getting scrapped because, in the case of their law they tried to pass, it resulted in a pretty swift and huge backlash. Also, they started running into massive technical issues and failures, and so they ultimately scrapped the law. So, yeah, other places that have tried it large scale have eventually seen how like it's really actually not effective at all. And unfortunately, especially because of the Supreme Court decision, it doesn't seem like the U.S. or any of the states that have passed these laws is really going to get to that point before the damage has been done. Now I want to talk about what actually does work because, of course, I've spent this whole rant talking about how the age verification laws are so ineffective, which also then begs the question, what is effective? Unfortunately, there are some things that really are. One of the biggest things is device based age verification. And that can look like multiple different solutions, but device based essentially just means that the origin of the filtering, whether it is a form of age verification or whether it's simply just website filtering, like the same kind of parental control technology that's already existed for a long time. But device based references that it is coming from the device side, the user side, as opposed to being imposed top down. So there has long been a push, especially by groups in the adult industry, toward device-based age verification on a larger scale. The fact that we don't have anything that looks like that yet doesn't really bode well, because it says that device manufacturers like Apple and Samsung aren't serious enough about it. They don't really care. Uh, I think in some ways politically it probably benefits them more, to be honest, to just like let this age verification law stuff play out the way that it is. But ideally, if we could get to the point of true device-based age verification, what that would look like is, I'll take iPhone as an example. A lot of parents buy their kid their first iPhone when the kid's like 6 or 7 years old. Full disclosure, I worked at an Apple store in college, and so I know this from my personal experience when I did tech support there. Parents will come in, they will buy their literal 6-year-old child an iPhone, and then I will help them set it up. And I will ask, do you want to enable parental controls? And you know what about 90% of parents said? No, I'm not worried about my kid doing anything bad. Which is crazy. I'm sorry. I'm not a parent, and I'm never going to be. But if I were, that would not be my attitude. Boy, okay. But yeah, most parents don't bother with parental controls. I think to some degree, there's like a lot of people who don't even know that it's a thing. But even when, as I just stated, in my old job, like people would come in and I would offer it to them. I would literally be like, I will set it up. You don't even have to do it. Like it takes 15 minutes. Just sit next to me and like we can go through the settings together. And so many people would say no to that. And I don't know if it's just out of some like wishful thinking that their kid's never going to search for any adult media online or what. But to me, that was absolutely crazy. But the tools were already there. Like every iPhone at least has a pretty, like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like a richly featured suite of like parental control tools that are built in. You just have to enable them. It would be great if we got to a point of device verification or device-based age verification where the manufacturers of smartphones would, there is a way in the software of a phone where they could tie a device ID into the user's age. And ideally, that would be the future that we could all live in. So I don't know if you've ever had multiple TikTok accounts, but a TikTok account is actually like knows your device ID. So even if I were to like erase my iPhone right now and completely set it up like a new phone and download the TikTok app and like log back in, it knows that I'm using the exact same phone I was using before because it has my device ID. So ideally, the best form of age verification would actually be that you set up your phone, you verify your age when you first set it up just once, and then you're the owner of that phone, and your age verification status is already intrinsically tied with your device ID. So no matter where you go on the internet, what sites you try to access, it doesn't even need to age gate you, really. You just, it's a pass or fail, and there's no need to submit your government ID. There's no need to do a biometric scan or anything like that. That would be ideal. That would be the most secure way to do this. And we're so far from that being the reality. For that to actually be the reality, it would probably take like lawmakers themselves lobbying Apple and tech companies to implement this as like an option. It's a shame because the technology is literally already there. People just need to be aware that it's an option and to give enough of a crap to actually make it happen. I'd also be remiss if I didn't say that like another really effective way of dealing with the issue of minors potentially accessing age inappropriate content online is that we really, really, really in this country need to have a conversation about comprehensive sex ed and why we need that and what it should look like. And it does us zero favors that most people in the United States never receive any kind of sex ed meaningfully, like truly any at all. And if they do get it in any way, it is pretty much abstinence only and very, very ineffective. And I am not aware of any form of sex ed that includes anything in the curriculum regarding media literacy around adult content. And I think a lot of what we're dealing with now, which is in fact a moral panic about the existence of porn online, you know, a lot of that moral panic could be different, you know, could be less intense, and maybe we could have just avoided it altogether had we been raising kids with some degree of media literacy around the fact that adult entertainment is adult entertainment. It is called that for a reason. It is made for adults, and it is made for entertainment. It is not made for minors, and it is not made to be educational at all. So just to recap, the problem with age verification laws: they don't do what they say they're going to do. They don't do it at all. In fact, they kind of like, in some really effed up ways, do the opposite of what they say they're going to do. They don't stop kids from accessing inappropriate content. They wreck privacy. They, you know, are a disaster for people who work in the adult industry, who are creators and who make a living doing content for adult sites, or that even like work for, you know, behind the scenes, because those people still depend on the success of these companies for their paychecks to come through. These laws are just a disaster for the future of the internet as a whole, because the reason the internet has become what it is now, the current state of the internet overall, I think I have a lot of problems with, but historically the internet has been a pretty free and open place, and a big part of why that's the case is because of the way things have been set up and unfolded over the last several decades. And we are now in an era where the censorship is real strong, the moral panic is running amok, and we're looking at the near future end to an open and free internet. And that doesn't really bode well for anyone. It especially doesn't bode well for marginalized groups or people who have, you know, politically unpopular opinions. To wrap this up, I would love to, actually, got a fun little graphic I want to show off. I do need to, where the hell did it go? My lord, where did it go? Where'd she go? I hope it still works. Okay, I have a little article I want to read. Oh man, it don't work now. Hold on. Let me see if it works now. She works now. Yay. Okay. I'm going to read this little article that I've pulled up on the page. This is just the Free Speech Coalition's reaction to the Supreme Court ruling in June. The title of this is, "In Radical Decision, Supreme Court Rules Age Verification Constitutional." In a radical departure from precedent, the Supreme Court affirmed the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision in Free Speech Coalition versus Paxton, ruling that online age verification for material harmful to minors is constitutional and potentially granting the government-wide power to limit access to the internet. This shocking decision goes far beyond adult content or adult websites, says Allison Bowden, executive director of Free Speech Coalition. The court has ignored the traditional protections of the First Amendment online and given states free rein to censor controversial content and ideas, so long as the goal is to protect children. Previous rulings from the court held that content-based restrictions on speech needed to be both narrowly tailored and the least restrictive method of accomplishing the law's goal, a standard known as strict scrutiny. In Free Speech Coalition v. Paxton, the court ruled that when it comes to material harmful to minors, the government may use a significantly more relaxed standard, intermediate scrutiny. The court decided that the Texas law meets that standard. The implications are profound. In other states, legislators, school boards, and attorneys general have already applied the same harmful to minors standard to restrict sex education materials, drag shows, pride displays, and classic literature like The Handmaid's Tale and Beloved. Justice Thomas, writing for the majority, dismissed the burden of verifying one's age online as modest. Unfortunately, in practice, the vast majority of adult internet users, for perfectly understandable reasons, refuse to comply with online verification, effectively blocking their access to material they have a constitutional right to access. It says to see, but my brain just made up a whole new word in place of that. While the Texas law required verification for sites with at least 1/3 material harmful to minors, Thomas's ruling did not acknowledge such limits as a necessary, suggesting that more draconian restrictions on internet access might also be permissible. In Tennessee, internet users are required to verify their identity every 60 minutes. In South Dakota, any site with any amount of material harmful to minors, including social media, must age verify all visitors. Both laws carry criminal consequences. The decision will have significant implications for the fight against internet censorship bills in the United States. Free Speech Coalition's legal team is evaluating the decision and will provide further guidance in the coming days. Free Speech Coalition urges compliance. The Supreme Court's affirmation of the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision in Free Speech Coalition v. Paxton will significantly impact our litigation across the country. As each case and law is different, we are consulting with our legal counsel to determine whether those laws will also survive the intermediate scrutiny standard established by the Supreme Court. I should have said this before I started reading this article, but for those who are not aware, Free Speech Coalition is a trade association for the adult industry. Their members, I'm a member, most people who work in the adult industry are members. Every big corn company you've ever heard of is a member. So yes, they do a lot of important work to defend our industry's right to free speech. So picking up where I just left off. Age verification laws in 18 states are currently in effect. Age verification laws in 3 more states, Georgia, South Dakota, and Wyoming, will go into effect on July 1st. As we have cautioned previously, platforms that choose to be accessible in those states should comply with the laws to limit their liability. We urge platforms to be vigilant as we expect enforcement of those laws to increase dramatically in the coming weeks and months. This is a dangerous time for our industry and for access to a free and open internet. In South Dakota, the operator of any platform with any amount of material harmful to minors is liable under the law and can be prosecuted criminally. This would likely implicate not only adult sites, but social media platforms such as X, Reddit, and Discord, retailers of sexual wellness products, including Amazon and Walmart, and platforms with audiobooks and ebooks. Even more concerning, Republican-led states like South Dakota have applied the same harmful to minors standard in the age verification law to sexual health resources, young adult novels, pride displays, and classic literature like The Handmaid's Tale and Beloved. As of July 1st, websites with such material may be targeted by the law. With conservative activists emboldened by the ruling, we fear and expect that censorship of both adult and non-adult material and websites will increase dramatically. While we all work to understand the scope of the Supreme Court's ruling, we recommend that all internet sites with resources, products, books, or other material that could be potentially viewed as harmful to minors consult legal counsel to understand the possible risks. So if that doesn't kind of wake you up into the reality of how, like, harmful these laws are, I don't know what will. I mean, does it take just corn being made completely illegal outright in the whole country? Because I'm telling you, we're on our way there. We're like halfway down the road to that, truly. it's disappointing, you know? What do we all grow up saying? If you grew up in the US, what is one of the first things that you caught on as like a catchphrase and you scream at other kids on the playground? I can do what I want. It's a free country. Well, guess what? It's not actually a free country. It's not. It's a free country for billionaires and for legislators that take money from billionaires to do what those billionaires want them to do. But for the rest of us, not so much. Well, that's about it. Thank you for watching and listening. Please hit the like button or the heart button. Leave a comment in the chat, in the comment section. And if you live in a state with age verification law, I'm sorry. Get yourself a good VPN. I suggest Proton VPN. It's really good. That's not sponsored. I've just been using it for years. Best of luck to you. And most importantly, check out the Free Speech Coalition and consider supporting them. You can only be a member if you are a verified person who works in the adult industry. But even if you cannot be a member because you're a civilian, you can still donate. And that is incredibly meaningful at this time because they're really the main organization that is actually out there on the front lines fighting against this kind of censorship. They just had a Supreme Court case that they unfortunately lost. But that's not the end of the story. They're going to keep fighting against it, and I'll keep supporting them. So hopefully, if you got $5 you want to throw toward the Free Speech Coalition, the link is in the description of this video, and they've got a big-ass donate button right at the top of their page. So again, thank you for watching. I will be back soon with some more fun YouTube streams, and I hope y'all have a great rest of your day. Stay safe and healthy.